In June 2004, a sewer pipe broke under Jerusalem, and history came out of the ground. Workers had stumbled onto the pool where Jesus healed a man born blind. The same pool skeptics spent decades calling pure fiction. But hidden in this pool is a detail that changes how you read that miracle, and almost no one talks about it. Stay with me until the end. Let's dive in. To understand what those workers found, you have to go back 2,000 years to a man sitting in the dust outside the temple. He was born blind, not blinded by accident, not blinded by disease. He had never seen a sunrise, never seen his mother's face, never seen anything at all. In first century Jerusalem, that meant one thing: begging. Every day, the same corner, the same outstretched hand, the same voices passing by, arguing about whose fault his blindness was. And that's exactly the question the disciples asked when they walked past him. John chapter 9 records it. "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" They looked at him and saw a theological puzzle. Jesus looked at him and saw something else entirely. What Jesus did next was strange. He didn't just speak a word of healing. He spat on the ground, made mud with the saliva, and spread it on the man's eyes. Then he gave a command that must have sounded almost cruel. "Go," he said, "wash in the Pool of Siloam." Think about that for a moment. A blind man, mud on his eyes, and now he has to walk alone, in darkness, down the stone streets of Jerusalem, all the way to the southern edge of the city. Jesus healed other blind men with a touch, on the spot. Why not this one? Why send him? And why to this pool, of all places? Hold on to that question, because the answer is buried at the very end of the story. And when you see it, you'll never read this miracle the same way again. But first, you need to know what that pool actually was. Because the Pool of Siloam didn't begin with Jesus. It began 700 years earlier, with a king digging for his life. Picture it like this. It's around the year 701 before Christ. The Assyrian war machine, the most brutal empire the world had ever seen, is rolling toward Jerusalem. City after city has fallen, and King Hezekiah knows Jerusalem has a fatal weakness: its water. The Gihon Spring, the city's lifeline, sits outside the walls. If the Assyrians reach it first, Jerusalem dies of thirst without a single arrow being fired. So Hezekiah does something audacious. The Bible describes it in 2 Kings chapter 20 and 2 Chronicles chapter 32. He cuts a tunnel through solid bedrock, more than 500 meters long, to bring the spring's water inside the city, into a pool at Jerusalem's southern end. Two teams of workers, starting from opposite sides, chiseling toward each other in total darkness, guided by sound alone. For centuries, that story sat on the pages of Scripture. No proof, just words. Until one afternoon in 1880, when a boy went wading in an old water tunnel south of Jerusalem's walls. The tunnel itself was no secret. Pilgrims had known about it for years. But as the boy felt his way through the darkness, he slipped, and when he steadied himself against the wall, he noticed something under his fingers. Carved letters, ancient Hebrew letters. Scholars were stunned by what the inscription said. It described the exact moment Hezekiah's two teams broke through and met. The sound of pickaxes calling to each other through the rock. The water flowing from the spring to the pool. An engineering report, frozen in stone, from the very project the Bible describes. Today, that inscription sits in a museum in Istanbul, and it remains one of the most important ancient Hebrew inscriptions ever found. So the tunnel was confirmed, the king was confirmed, but here's what almost nobody stopped to ask. The tunnel had to end somewhere. The water had to pour into something. Where was the pool? That question turned out to be far more explosive than anyone expected. Because by the 19th and 20th centuries, a wave of critical scholars had turned their attention to the Gospel of John. And they didn't like what they saw. John, they argued, was written late, written far from Jerusalem, written by someone who, they claimed, had never walked the city's streets at all. And their favorite pieces of evidence were John's pools, Take the Pool of Bethesda from John chapter 5, where Jesus healed a paralyzed man who had waited 38 years. John describes it with a strange architectural detail. 5 covered colonnades. 5. Critics laughed at that. No pool in the ancient world had 5 porticoes, they said. 4 sides, 4 porticoes. The 5th was obviously symbolic, a literary invention. Maybe representing the 5 books of Moses. Proof that John was writing theology, not history. Then the archaeologists started digging near the Church of St. Anne, just north of the Temple Mount, and out of the earth came a massive double pool. 2 basins, side by side. 4 colonnades around the outside, and a 5th running across the middle, dividing the 2 pools. 5 porticos, exactly as John said. The detail that was supposed to prove John never saw Jerusalem turned out to prove the opposite. Whoever wrote this had stood there. You would think that settled it. It didn't, because the critics still had Siloam. Yes, there was a small pool at the end of Hezekiah's tunnel, a modest structure where pilgrims had prayed for 1,500 years, built around the 5th century after Christ. But look at it honestly, and the problems pile up. It was tiny. It was plain. It matched nothing of what a great public pool from the time of Jesus should look like. And beneath it, around it, no trace of anything older. No grand pool from the days when Jesus walked these streets. So the argument hardened. The Siloam of John chapter 9, the critics said, was exactly what the 5 porticos were supposed to be. A symbol, a theological device. Siloam was just a word John used to make a spiritual point, not a place where a real blind man washed real mud from his eyes. And here's the uncomfortable part. For a very long time, the evidence seemed to be on their side. Generation after generation of pilgrims knelt at a pool that wasn't the pool. Archaeologists surveyed the area and found nothing. The city moved on. Gardens and orchards grew over the southern slopes of ancient Jerusalem. And whatever secrets lay underneath stayed underneath. Maybe you know what that feels like. Believing something no one around you can prove. Standing on a promise while the silence stretches on. For the Pool of Siloam, that silence lasted centuries. It ended, of all things, with a broken sewer pipe. In June of 2004, a repair crew was sent to fix a blocked drainage line at the southern tip of the city of David. The oldest part of Jerusalem, heavy equipment began peeling back the soil next to an old orchard. And a few feet down, the digging stopped. There, under the roots in the mud, lay 2 wide stone steps, cut, dressed, deliberate. His name was Shukron, an archaeologist assigned to watch over any digging in the city of David. Because in Jerusalem, you never know what's under your feet. When he saw those steps emerging from the mud, he made a phone call to Professor Ronny Reich, one of Israel's leading experts on ancient Jerusalem. Reich came, studied the stones and the location, the lowest point of the ancient city, right where Hezekiah's waters would flow. And the 2 men understood they might be standing on the edge of something enormous. The sewer repair became an excavation, and the earth began to give up what it had held for nearly 2,000 years. 2 steps became a staircase, the staircase became a corner, the corner became a monumental pool, stone steps descending in 3 graceful tiers, stretching over 60 meters along one side. This was no village cistern. This was a vast public pool, built to receive thousands of people, plastered and paved with cut stone. But stairways alone don't tell you when. For that, archaeologists needed a signature in time, and the pool gave them 2. Sealed inside the plaster of the steps, workers found coins of Alexander Jannaeus, a Judean king who ruled about a century before Jesus. Money trapped in plaster tells you when builders were working, because no one opens dried plaster to insert old coins. And in the pool's corner, buried in the debris of its final days, lay coins from the Jewish revolt against Rome, the war that ended in the year 70, when Jerusalem was burned and this pool vanished under rubble and silt. Put those 2 signatures together, and the conclusion is hard to escape. This pool was built before Jesus was born. It was alive and full of water throughout his ministry, and it died with the city a generation later. The Pool of John chapter 9 the one critics called a theological fiction, had been lying there the whole time, a few meters from where pilgrims knelt at the wrong one. The man who wrote, "Go, wash in the Pool of Siloam," wasn't inventing scenery, he was describing a place he knew. Down to the stones a blind man's feet would have touched. You might think that's the end of the story. The pool is real, the gospel is vindicated, case closed. But the archaeologists weren't finished. And what they worked out next is the part almost no one talks about. The detail that reaches out of the first century and touches the reason Jesus sent that man at all. Start with what the pool was for as the excavation widened. Its design started to look strangely familiar. Broad, shallow steps, landings where people could stand in the water. Many archaeologists believe this was not a swimming pool and not a reservoir, but something far more significant. A mikveh, a ritual purification bath, possibly the largest one ever found in Israel. And its location explains why, from the edge of this pool, Shukron and Reich uncovered the beginning of a monumental step street, a stone road climbing straight up the hill toward the Temple Mount. Scholars call it the Pilgrimage Road. 3 times a year, at the Great Feasts, hundreds of thousands of pilgrims poured into Jerusalem. And the picture the evidence paints is breathtaking. They came first to this pool at the bottom of the city, washed themselves clean, and then ascended, step by step, all the way up to the house of God, which means the blind man wasn't sent to some random puddle. He was sent to the gateway of the temple, the place where unclean people became clean. A man whose blindness made half the city treat him as cursed by God, sent to wash at the very spot where worshipers prepared to enter God's presence. And now, the name. John himself pauses in the middle of the story to make sure you don't miss it. "Go, wash in the Pool of Siloam," he writes, and then adds, which means sent in Hebrew, shiloach, from a word meaning to send. The pool carried that name for centuries because its water didn't rise on its own. It was sent there, flowing down Hezekiah's tunnel from the spring. Isaiah chapter 8 speaks of the gently flowing waters of Shiloah 700 years before Christ. Now watch what Jesus does with that name. Over and over in John's Gospel, dozens of times, Jesus calls himself the one the Father has sent. Just moments before this miracle, in John chapter 9 verse 4, he says, "We must do the works of him who sent me." Then he puts mud on a blind man's eyes and tells him, "Go to the pool called Sent," the sent one, sending a blind man to the pool named Sent, so that a man who had never seen anything would open his eyes at the doorway to the temple. This isn't a miracle with a location attached. The location is part of the message. Water that cannot rise by itself, sent down from a spring. A man who cannot heal himself, sent down by the Savior. Some see even more layers here, but at minimum, one thing is certain. Jesus chose that pool, and John recorded its meaning on purpose. And here's the wonder of our own generation. You can go there. The steps the blind man walked down are open to the sky again. The pilgrimage road is being excavated meter by meter beneath modern Jerusalem, and much of the pool itself still waits under the old orchard beside it, with plans announced to uncover it fully. After 2,000 years, this story has an address. So before we finish, let the story turn and look at you for a moment. Think about how this pool came back to the world, not through a grand expedition, not through a professor's brilliant theory, through a broken sewer pipe, through a repair crew doing an ordinary job on an ordinary Tuesday. The thing everyone called a legend was right under their feet the entire time, and it took an accident to reveal it. Maybe there's something in your life right now that looks like that broken pipe, a plan that failed, a door that closed, a mess you never asked for. And maybe you've been asking God why he allowed it. But the story of Siloam whispers a different question. What if the disruption is the excavation? What if God is using the very thing that broke to uncover something he buried in you long ago? Something no one, not even you, believed was there? And remember the blind man? Jesus put mud on his eyes and sent him walking, still blind. Every step of that walk, nothing had changed yet. He had no proof, no sight, only a command and a name. Sent. The healing didn't come when the mud touched his eyes. It came when he obeyed in the dark. Some of you are in that walk right now, between the promise and the pool. Keep walking. The water is real. It's been real all along, even when the whole world said it wasn't there. So here's the question I want to leave with you today. If you had been that blind man, mud on your eyes, a long dark road ahead, and only a word from a stranger to go on, would you have walked? Be honest, right? I would have walked in the comments. Or right, I would have doubted. And read what others share. You'll be surprised how many people are somewhere on that road right now. If this story strengthened your faith even a little, don't keep it buried. Share this video with one person who's waiting on a promise. And subscribe, because these stories are coming out of the ground faster than we can tell them. And you don't want to miss what surfaces next.